Counselor Accents Podcast. Two school counselors who love their jobs. Oh, and they happen to have Southern accents too. Bless their hearts.
I'm Laura Rankhorn.
And I am Kim Crumbley. And together we are Counselor Accents, two school counselors who are in the trenches with you.
We know what you're going through because we're living it every single day. And Kim, we just talked about how we are overcoming a little bit of sadness. And I think we got to the root of it whenever we jumped on here and saw each other's faces.
It's just all the depression jumped off of our shoulders and ran.
Yeah, because we were together so much. And then it's like we were college roommates and graduated. And now we're just feeling very lonely because we were together for so much.
We're back with our husbands and kids. It's
yeah.
But the real world.
Yeah. And we were really living it up.
Yes. And if you don't know what we're talking about, which you do not know what we were talking about, but we recently keynoted in New Jersey for the New Jersey School Counselor Association. They do like 2 a year, right?
I think they said 3. A fall, a winter, and a spring.
Or was it they were thinking about adding the winter?
Okay.
I don't know, but they do a lot. And so we keynoted their spring, and there's been some amazing speakers there. So we took advantage of the proximity of New Jersey to, as we found out, they call it the city. So we did.
But if you're not from there, we're talking about New York City.
Right. To all the rest of us, it's New York City, but to New Jersey, it is the city.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I didn't either. But I guess it's like us saying we're going to town. Nobody knows we're talking about like which town.
Right. But we all know it's the town because we could never call it the city. That would be hilarious.
So our whole trip has just been, it was like the best. It was the best trip, wasn't it?
It was like 2 country miles go to the city.
From the start to finish. I think, so our flight there was perfect. It couldn't have gone better. Everything was so easy. And then we get there and we Uber over to New Jersey. And I think that was my first realization that we're not in the South anymore. Because when in the South, when you need to merge into traffic, it is a 5-minute conversation that you have with the people behind you because you're inching, but you're not going to get into their lane.
You're waving,
and you're saying, "Can I get over? Can I get over?"
You're asking.
You ask
with the hand and
the face all scrunched up, like, "Can I get over?"
Yeah,
and they say yes, and then you've got to wave and say thank you, and then once you merge in,
another thank
you, and in New Jersey and in New York, what we learned is, they're coming over.
There is no preemptive.
There's no conversation, right? There's no
discussion. They just come in, like hit me or don't. I don't care. There's no thank you wave.
There's some honking. I don't know if the honking represents thank you.
Of honking. It's like a language.
Yes.
We speak Southernese. They speak honk. And
yes.
I mean, they just honk, honk, honk. And in the South, where we live, you can sit at a red light and not realize it's turned green, like through 3 cycles, and nobody's going to honk at you. They'll just sit there patiently.
Because you don't know if it's your pastor's wife that's up there.
And you don't know. So you're just going to sit there and that's just the way it is.
No, we don't. They don't even need to. They should make horns like an add-on here in the South because none of us would purchase it.
No, there would be no need for the horn unless it's you see somebody you know, and then you use the horn. That's the only way you're using the horn. So the horn is a whole different thing there. They actually use it to talk. Yeah. So I am thinking this is very aggressive. I don't know how we're all going to get along.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetest people in the world.
I think
those New Jersey people were like, I mean, when you talk, I'm like, how are you on one hand, like so aggressive with the horn? And then I see you in person and it's just,
The
butter.
sweetness
Milk.
oozes off of them. And I think every single person that attended that conference came up to us and spoke to us personally, thanked us for being there.
I
They're just the
know.
most genuine, sweetest people
So
outside of the
sweet.
car.
It is, and then you get inside the car, and I don't know what happens to the car. I don't know what happens to these people. I don't know, but I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
they take it. I'm just taking it that again, the horn is a language, and that's just how they're raised to
Yeah.
just be very aggressive drivers.
We would not
And
do
then
well.
and they put us on a train, which was hilarious, which goes underground to get to New York. I don't know from whence it was on top to underground. And so we took I literally thought we were going to train over, but it ended up being a subway. So we subwayed to New York, and the people were so very helpful because they could see we were like, again,
Do you think it was our
lost.
20 bags that we were dragging behind us for
And just the
16
shock,
blocks?
the scared to death look on our faces, like, what are we gonna do? How's this thing gonna get on top of the ground again? What are we gonna do? They helped us, and just so pleasant. But I will say that we ended up staying a night in New York that we were planning on staying in New Jersey. We ended up going on over, so we'd be in New York the next morning. And I got the wrong hotel, and that's where things went south with Laura and I.
Well,
There was a lot of blame, a lot of anger, a lot of hunger,
and
hangerness.
the anger was on your part towards yourself, and you were trying to blame me.
That
You kept
condescending
saying,
attitude. When
huh?
you're like, it's okay. That's very condescending.
What you wanted me to do. It would have been better for you if I had called you some kind of name. But my understanding and
Who clicked the
compassion,
button? Who clicked the button and got it? Who did it?
that's
You
a good
did.
point. You
Yeah,
passed it
you
up to
did.
me because you were getting car sick. So it was on the part where I put in the card number, and I didn't go back and check because I didn't. And so I
Mhm,
just
mhm.
but we're both a threat to get car sick. So I thought the quicker we get this done, the better.
Absolutely. And so it was the best thing that ever happened to
It
us. We ended
was.
up
So
in Soho.
we end up at the wrong hotel. The one
Yeah.
I thought the one we were staying at the next night. And they look it up, and instantly that look when she's like, hmm, hmm. And you
We
know
don't
that our
see
name's not on
you.
the book. And so she says, y'all booked the one in Soho. Except she didn't say y'all. You guys booked the one in Soho. And we're thinking, so how do we get there? Because
Right.
we have no idea. We're in Times Square. And so we had to Uber, and it was the best Uber. That was the best, happiest accident. You were so
Every
ill for a few
accident
minutes,
every accident that we ran into was so good. So then
which
we
were
were
a
able
lot.
to walk from Soho to Italy, Little Italy,
Mhm.
and that was like Epcot. Like when you go to Italy and
Yes.
Epcot, it was like you had stepped into another country. We walked to this other country, and it was like we went to a pizza place, and it was like I was watching an episode of The Godfathers. I thought, are they in character, or is this really them? Are they in character? The whole, you know, I don't know. Like he said, "So how you doing?" I mean, that threw me, just the how
Yeah.
you doing, and I'm like, "I'm good. How are you?" It's okay, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is like we're in a movie." And then, like literally, like at Epcot, you go a street up, and you're in Chinatown.
Yeah.
It was, and so the best food in the world.
And they
So we
told
were
us, they
so
said,
thankful.
"You've got to go meet the Cannoli King." Well, I'm sorry, if your name is the Cannoli King and you've been on the Today Show, yeah, it's happening. We're going to meet you. And so we did. We went and found the Cannoli King, which I have to say, he did have a recruiter outside his door saying, "Hey, ladies, you want a cannoli?" And I thought we were about to get flashed.
I literally felt like with him the way he was looking at us and with the coat and everything. So you want a cannoli? And I'm like, I'm not really sure what he's asking for, but we're so Southern. If he had taken us off, we'd have followed him. So we're like,
Uh,
yes. So come in,
so
you get a cup of coffee and a cannoli.
And then he disappears, and we're in the thick of it. But the Cannoli King truly is. I mean, he's met Ryan Seacrest. He had like his picture up with all these people up on the wall. And he was
I
very
love that
Italian.
you go straight to Ryan Seacrest
Yeah, out of all the
all the
people.
people.
It's just because that was the
He's been on
one
all the
poster.
shows, Rachel
That was the
Ray,
one poster in
Kelly
my
Clark,
line of
I
view.
know. And so he is quite a character. He's literally there.
Yeah.
And we made a couple of trips back to see the Cannoli King. And let me say, he was always there. And people are coming just to meet him. He knows everybody. It was just so much fun. That was really, really neat. And the best cannoli literally I've ever eaten.
It
So
was
good.
so good. And then we get back to our hotel that we weren't even supposed to be staying at. We go up to the rooftop and the views that you could see, I mean, you could see every part of New York, like 360-degree views. And we
It
would
was
have missed that.
incredible. And we sat and talked to a mother and daughter who were literally, and I don't mean to be ugly. I don't want to be ugly, but I'm just going to say they were dingbats, Laura.
Oh my word. I didn't know if you were
not
gonna bring this up, but there's no way we can do this story justice. And I hope they're not listening to us because
I'm pretty sure they're not. I'm going to go on a limb. They were really sweet. It was just I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, they were just do the girl's voice.
So you're having this conversation. I would say debate with the mom.
What does a school counselor do?
Immediately she hones in on, like, we told her we were school counselors, and it's like she gets offensive and she says, well, when are you going to start guiding people back into college? Because we had a very tough time getting my daughter into an Ivy League college. That's what I got from it.
Yes, one's at Yale and one's in Scotland somewhere. I'm like,
and so the Yale girl, or the girl that couldn't get into Yale, she's looking at me like, I don't know. Maybe she was on something. I don't know. But she keeps, like, after everything, she's going, that's so crazy. That's crazy. It doesn't matter if you said, oh my gosh, look, I just saw a dog poop in Central Park. That's so crazy.
Everything.
And then she asked to see my ring. She was like, oh, let me see your ring, which my ring is just a plain solitaire. And she's like, oh, congratulations.
That's crazy.
This is year 20 for me. So thank you. We're no longer registered anywhere if you want to send a gift. But I'm just like,
since we've been married 30 years, thank you.
Right. That's crazy after everything. And so we did make fun of that for a lot of our trip.
The rest of the trip, everything was, that's crazy.
That's crazy. Yes, there's no way to describe it to you. I mean,
where were they from?
Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which we love Boston. And
we love Boston, but that's the end of that.
There's more, but
there's more, but that's the end of that. Oh my goodness. So yeah.
So we were sitting there at the Italian restaurant and we wanted tickets to the Statue of Liberty, but all they had left were 2:00 tickets. And while we were sitting there, an 11:00 opened up, but it wouldn't let it go. Like, it wouldn't go through. It wouldn't complete it. And would you believe that then a 9:00 appointment while we were sitting there, came available. So we were able to go to the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island at 9:00 in the morning, which is exactly what we wanted. Because we had to get back because we had to get all the way back over to Times Square because we had 5th row tickets to Wicked that night on Broadway.
Yes, we did. And it was amazing because we have both seen Wicked, but not on Broadway. So
nothing compares to this time seeing it.
No.
I didn't stop smiling from the minute it started until the very end. I mean,
we know all the songs, and
yeah,
I feel like it's us. You decide who you are, and I'll decide who I am.
Got
it.
You decide.
Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah. My heart, I know. So it was really good. It was really good.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was crazy. And then Sunday, it was our last day, which you would think might be a little bit depressing. But we started out, I mean, and I think here's the thing. we didn't have an agenda. We had talked for months about how we needed to plan our New York trip, but we never had the time to just sit down and like, you know how the Disney moms plan it out with at 9:20 you're going to eat at Pinocchio's cafe and 9:40 we'll be in line for whatever. That was our intent, but we never had a chance to do that. And I think that just going with the flow and doing what we want was the
Yes,
best.
and you can do that if you don't have kids dragging along
True,
with you,
true.
so,
But
anyway, and we stayed lost, we stayed so lost,
it
like,
was
it didn't matter with we were happy lost,
happy
like,
lost. And
happy lost.
our hotel guy had said, "Why don't you walk down to Central Park?" So we did. We were just gonna walk through Central Park a little bit, but I think the highlight of the trip for me was the pedicab carriage tour that we took of Central Park.
So funny, it was so funny, so our little cab driver was from Tanzania, is that something like that,
Something like that.
and he was so funny, I mean, he was just so funny, so he just pedaled us around, and we snuggled up in the little thing and talked to him and just had so much fun.
He
Laughed
took
so hard.
Yes, he took pictures of us. He was the best. I wish we knew his name because we would tell you to make sure that you go find him. But, it was just it was so great.
Yes, it was. We had so much fun, so much fun.
So, the icing on the cake, quite literally, was we went to Carlo's Bakery there in Times Square, and, he's the cake boss, so it was a big deal. And so you got an eclair and I got a cupcake, and we didn't have time to eat them before we had to get back on the plane. And so I had researched it. I looked it up on, Google, and it said cupcakes, baked goods are fine to take in your carry-on. So you shoved them down in your bag, and not 1, but 2 of your carry-on bags get flagged there at LaGuardia. And the whole time, the things that you were saying to me and the names that you called me, one day I will forgive you for them, but I will never forget. Because you were so ugly saying, "You dummy, it's those stupid eclairs, it's those baked goods." And so bag number 1 comes out, he unzips it. It is a bottle of water, which we have not been able to carry on a plane since 23 years.
So what made me think I was gonna sneak that by?
Yeah. So the eclair and the cupcake did make it. Bag number 2 got flagged for volume boosting
Hairspray.
hairspray.
Which I was willing to take a chance on that volume boosting because I know how you get when your hair gets flat. I'm like, "No," and I'm like, "That is an expensive bottle," and it just went into the garbage can. But
And
let me just say this, what I found out about you, Laura.
Okay.
As soon as they have me trapped over doing the strip search, you sidestep on past me like you have never seen me in your life. I'm like, I know now what would happen to me if I'm going to be hauled off and arrested. You'd act like I don't know who she is. But you did tell me, you said, "I was so scared."
It was it was such a stressful moment, and I do recall looking back, and you've got your bag spread open.
I'm sprawled eagle.
You
I'm
are
already disrobing.
you're naked.
I'm naked with my bags.
And I remember turning around and seeing you in the middle of the aisle with your bag completely open, your underwear's hanging out. Everybody sees it. I took a
I'm
glance.
looking at you like, "What? Don't leave me."
You did have a look of desperation in your face, and I remember just
I was like I've never seen her before in my life.
in our defense, though, in my defense, I guess I should say, is that it's more intense than Alabama. The New York airport.
They saw the volumizer in Alabama. It's like, "You go, girl."
They understood. That's how it got through Alabama. They understood that volume is a way of life. And so
And you get there and LaGuardia, and we understand, and I appreciate it, but I've never been under that much scrutiny.
and flight fighter freeze, you froze, I flew.
Oh, you was out of there. It's just when her eyes locked, and I gave you the help me eye look, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm out of here."
I will say I was in so much of fight, flight, or freeze. I just knew I felt like we were both matched in our desperation. But
Yes,
I
'cause
do
you were
recall in
thinking, "I'm gonna have to
hindsight,
make this trip by myself home and tell her family what happened."
and I didn't really get concerned until about 20 members
Of
came
the
through,
Yes.
and you were not one of them, but 20 other passengers came through because I couldn't see you. And I was trying to keep an eye on your bag. I wasn't leaving your bags because I could tell they were about to have to be searched, but you weren't coming. I don't know what they did to you. And I'm not asking. No questions. Don't
No,
ask. Whatever.
there are things that I will take with me
Yeah.
to the grave.
But yeah, you're right. I did. Fight, flight, or freeze.
That is some good stuff. Oh my gosh. So yes, but we were asked to speak on voice, and so that was exciting for us because we thought how powerful is our voice.
Yeah. Immediately when they said the topic is voice, we got excited and our brains just started going in a bunch of different directions. And we thought this is something we can talk about for hours. And really, the challenge was figuring out which direction to go with voice because there are so many different things you can do. But I remember one day I listened to a podcast. It was a history podcast because I'm trying to connect with you a little bit more since you are a history buff and I'm not. I'm
Yeah,
I'm just working on our relationship.
I appreciate it.
And there was one on Amelia Earhart, but it was about her husband who had a story ghostwritten for Charles Lindbergh. And so it was talking about just the process of ghostwriting, and it went into how everybody has a story to tell. People just don't always have the ability to tell it. And I think it was that line that made us say, oh, wow, that's our students. They've got a story, but sometimes they don't know how to tell it or they don't have the audience yet to listen to it. And so it's a huge responsibility for us whenever they bring us those stories to figure out, okay, how do we piece this together to tell their story with the responsibility that we have? And how do we get it to the right audience if it needs to go to an audience?
Yeah, and with the when you think about we're the ghostwriter, if you will, for a group of people who are um the most marginalized and vulnerable group of people in society because these are children 18 and under, and sometimes we hear their voice, what their story is, and those kids can't get that out. They can't tell that story
Hmm.
for themselves, and so that's a big responsibility. And sometimes taking their voice and getting it to the right audience, and sometimes not giving up. Like
Yeah.
if one person's not listening, we keep going until we get the help that they need. So that's a huge responsibility that we have. So whether that's getting that voice to DHR or or the human, protective services, or to a therapist, or even to other educators. So in the realm of what we can do with confidentiality, that's an important and a very important job that we have as
Hmm.
school counselors. So one of the things that we discovered when we were talking and thinking about is that it has been reported that empathy among college students is at the lowest it's ever been. And so when we thought about what we are seeing more of is apathy, but really it's not apathy, because apathy says I don't care. And we think that it's not that we don't care, it's that we think that kids do care. We do think that educators care. We think counselors care. It's just that it's a state of the brain called hypoarousal, where it's just too much and it just shuts your brain down. And that's what's happening in education right now. So teachers, they don't think administrators care, and administrators think teachers don't care, and that hypoaroused brain, it cannot move forward. It's just kind of like a car that stalls out. And so
And
what we're seeing is a lot of fear, just a lot of fear. We can't go forward. So it's what we're seeing in education right now is a lot of stress, and it appears like it's apathy.
And you know how you'll have a student that is not on task. Maybe they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing except the one thing that the teacher has asked them to do. And it looks like they don't care. They're not motivated by a zero. They're not motivated by Saturday school or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of teachers have said
They're
apathy,
lazy.
like what you're saying.
Yeah. I
But
mean, how many times do we hear over and over and over again? They can do it. They're
uh-huh,
just lazy. They're
right,
just lazy.
right.
No, nobody wants to. If that's the case where they're just not doing it, there's something there. There is a reason
Hmm.
that they're, and it's so using that, what we're talking about, the ghost writing. What is their story? What do they need? What skill is missing?
Yeah. And, the same is true for us as adults. We just don't think about it. And there are plenty of times where I'll have chores that need to be done or something that I need to work on, but I sit and scroll on Facebook or read a book or something like that before I get started. And that is me avoiding the main thing that needs to get done. And it could look like apathy, just like within our students, that could look like apathy.
What skill are they missing?
Hmm.
What is it that they're missing, that puts it more back on the teacher? It's not just enough to say, "Well, you're lazy."
Hmm.
What do I need to do? What do I need to teach you to get to you to do what you need to do? Because what used to work in the past doesn't work anymore, right? Calling the
And
parents or, paddling them or detention, those things are, those don't last.
I had a conversation with my mom, who was a teacher for almost 50 years, and now she subs. And so we were talking about just the difference. And she was talking about like the approach that people have to students these days. And she's like, you know what worked back when I was a teacher? Yes. Yes, I do know what worked back when you were a teacher. So I was able to have a conversation with her. And I thought she was going to be very resistant. But of course, I did it in a respectful way. But I said, every kid that's coming to us now has a story where back even 20 years ago, maybe you could paddle a student and send them home, and their parents were going to paddle them when they got home. But then they were also going to feed them a dinner. They were going to feed them a meal and sit with them at the dinner table and talk about how the day was. That's not the case anymore. That's not how our students are coming to us. Every kid that comes to us has a story. And we just kind of talked through some of those stories. And by the end, she was like, I feel awful. She said, I feel like I was the worst teacher ever. And I said, no. I said, times are different. Things have
Yeah.
changed. And I said, you did what was appropriate back when you were a teacher,
Yeah,
but
and I think
situations are different.
that coming to realization that, oh my gosh, once you realize that it's
Mm-hmm.
different, you have that, "Oh, I can't believe I did it that way."
Mm-hmm.
Um, because probably back then there were students who had stories. It just wasn't as much,
Yes.
like you're saying. I mean, there was more, less of the technology, the social media, the
Yes.
parents on social media, the all of the things that have brought us to this place. Speaking of bringing us to this place, one of the things, I know we're not going over everything that we talked about that day, but tell the molasses story, because I think it's really crucial and such a powerful point to our next point.
Okay. Well, in my effort to connect with you on history, I started listening to this History for Dummies podcast. And so I had learned about the Great Molasses Flood. And I wanted to know a little bit more about it. Like, did it really happen? Or was this something I made up in my head? And so I listened to this podcast episode. And so in Boston, back in, when was it? Do you remember? 19,
Was it like 13, 11, or some 10 maybe?
maybe
I can't
1910,
remember. It
we'll
was the
say.
early 1900s,
Okay.
early 1900s.
They built this tank out of steel in Boston to hold molasses. Well, molasses are very heavy. So it was like 23 tons that this tank was holding. And when they got all the molasses in there, the tank started groaning and creaking and squeaking. And the townspeople said, "Is this normal? Should this be happening?" So they brought the steel company back out. The steel company said, "Yeah, it's fine. It's no problem." And so it kept squeaking and groaning and clanking. And they said, "I just don't feel good about this. Like, this is 23 tons. Are we sure this is safe?" So they came back out, they caulked it, and they painted it, and they said, "Good as new." And so eventually the townspeople just, it was a way of life to listen to the creaking and the groaning. They just became complacent, I guess, to the creaks and the groans. And then one day the steel gave way, the tank collapsed, and molasses went everywhere. And so it's very tragic because lives were lost, people were injured. It was a mess to clean up because, it's sticky and gooey and then it hardens. And so you've got like major mess to clean up.
So, like, 21 people died
Mhm.
and, hundreds injured.
Mhm.
It was just, I mean, it's just crazy to think it, and we can go down that, that how awful that is. But we really started thinking about the creaks and the groans
Mhm.
and that we've been hearing for a long time from our students. And so we realized, Laura and I realized that, part of what we do as counselors is we work with behaviors, we work with academics, we work with, career, call all the things, SEL. And we were hearing these creaks and groans, but we didn't feel like maybe we were enough was, we didn't know what to do about it. Maybe
Yeah.
other people did, but we didn't feel like enough was happening in our nation to prepare for what this flood that was coming. And boy, has it. If we look at behaviors now, the inattention, the impulsivity, the anxiety, the depression, the fatigue, the stomach disorders, the irritability, the kids who can't sleep. I mean, there is more of that than there are not of that. I think the National Center for Children's Health shows that for the first time, typical students without any of these things, that's the lesser number. So
Mhm.
we have more students who have these things than don't.
Mhm.
And so,
In
you
fact, I
know,
just heard
yeah.
that graphic that we talk about a lot,
Mhm.
it's now been updated,
Uh-huh.
and students with no other issues going on are 25%, but that's
Okay.
only 25% of a typical classroom.
So that, and these teachers are coming out of college not knowing this, not prepared for these behaviors. And so, Laura and I said, you know what? We keep seeing these same students. There's more of these than the students who don't have the need for, that these others do. So we felt like a hamster on a wheel. We kept dealing with the kids. We'd send them back to the classroom. The teacher would trigger them because you know, they weren't understanding that
Mhm.
there is a reason that they're acting this way. So we began to really think about, instead of putting out, in my case, 400 plus students, and yours too, Laura, I think around that same number, instead of putting out those fires, why would we not change the mindset of,
Mhm.
for me, 32 teachers and
Mhm.
more if you're including all the faculty. So, how much easier it is for me to change the mindsets of a few rather than put out all of these fires that, no matter if I got a good student to a good place, if the teachers couldn't get them to a good place, we were just going around in circles. So, we
Well,
began this journey of helping teachers understand that every behavior tells a story.
and when you think about it, in our world, we sometimes just assume that everybody already knows this because it's so much of the world that we work in. We understand that, okay, this kid doesn't have a pencil because they were in another house last night because their dad was trying to set fire to their other house. We know these things. And so we just assume that everybody else does. But
Yeah.
once we looked at thinking about the Great Molasses Flood and we thought about they need to understand that these groanings and creakings need support, just like that tank needed support and needed fixing. This is our way of putting those supports in, is to hit it at the source
And
of
Laura, when you say that they painted it and chalked it, that's our old system of discipline. I
talked.
mean, caulk. Did I say chalk it? Caulk. So, the principal would take them in, here's a paddling, or here's, suspension. Nothing was ever changed, though.
Right.
Nothing ever was fixed. It was just, I've painted over it. The teacher's
You're
happy
right.
now, disciplined, and, the child's been chalked, if you will.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
that's such a good comparison.
we're saying to the teachers, instead of saying, "What's wrong with you?" You've heard this before. What's happened to you? And we both introduced our teachers to ACEs, which we assume
Mhm.
that everybody knows what this is. That's a wrong assumption, because not everybody understands ACEs, and that kids are living through their ACEs as they're in their classroom.
Yeah, and it's so powerful whenever you do introduce your teachers to ACEs because I was in a training just the other day where, for the first time, a bunch of teachers were hearing about ACEs. And this guy turned around to his table and I heard him say, I should be dead right now because he realized his ACE score was so high, but he had not heard anything about ACEs before. He had no idea. But to
Mhm.
realize what he's overcome and where he is now, it's very eye opening and very powerful. And I'm sure you've experienced that. And I've seen similar things whenever I've introduced teachers to ACEs.
So, Laura, one of the things that we talk about is family privilege, and helping students to understand that family privilege is that if you have a feeling of safety, you feel loved, you have parents who, you're getting to explore the world, right? You have that a luxury to imagine and be a child. But a lot of our kids, they're having to parent themselves.
Did
They
you
don't have.
say you said helping students understand family privilege, which I think is
No,
powerful,
no, I'm sorry, helping
helping
teachers,
teachers. Okay,
yes,
that's what
understand.
I thought it was, but then I
Yes.
thought helping
No,
students.
no.
That's
Yes,
another.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing that we could go down.
Yeah.
Helping teachers understand it. Students, some of them have to parent themselves. They have to worry about where their next meal's coming from, whether their parents are coming back. They're staying alert all the time for violence. And that family privilege that I grew up with, that you grew up with,
Mhm.
not saying that we didn't have dysfunction in our family, because everybody has a certain amount of dysfunction in their family, but we always had a bond, a
Yeah.
loving bond, a sense of safety, a sense of belonging, that some of these kids, they just don't have that.
Well, and whether the teachers realize it or not, sometimes we view situations through the lens that we grew up in. And so we think that because we had every available resource, we were able to go to college and get our degree and whatever, that's available to everyone. But it's not. And when you have those conversations with students and you realize that they could run a mega million-dollar company, but they say, no, I have to take over the family business and catch chickens, that they really, I mean, that's their family. That's the culture of their family. That's what they believe they are going to have to do. So, and that's a whole other topic we could talk about too.
So, yes, we do trainings on training teachers, because
Yeah.
this is, so we won't go any more into that, other than to say part of us understanding that students have a story and we're ghostwriters is that teachers have to understand, because that's where they are most of the day. They're not with us, they're with
Hmm.
those educators. And so to change a culture is to start with with educating. And so to see us as school counselors is, you might be that person that educates, or you bring somebody else in that educates on trauma, or but it's made a huge difference in our school.
And let me say this, I mean, this is kind of an awkward place to put this in, but we are offering our Growing Your Program for School Counselors course, and training the teachers is a component that we cover in that course. So this is one of those things that we're going to help you understand and help you see. And you can have our training that we do for our teachers through that course. So if you were on the fence about possibly signing up for that wait list, that may make you decide that you want to get on there or not?
So, like a ghostwriter, we may never get credit. Ghostwriters don't get credit
Mhm.
for book that they have written. By the way, a little interesting point is up to 90% of nonfiction's books, according to the major publishers, are ghostwritten. So, we're looking at all these new biographies, all these sports stars, all these musicians, all these celebrities, and we're reading their books, but it's not coming from them, it's coming from the ghostwriter. So as school counselors, we may never get credit. We may never see the end product of what we're putting into lives, but that's not what we went into it for, right? I mean, but how powerful to take a student's voice and help them get the help that they need.
So good. So good. I am so sorry because there at the end, I got distracted because I realized that I did not put mascara on one of my eyes.
I thought that you had a stroke, and I was going to bring
Yeah.
it up in a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's like you have eye makeup on one, but then when you
Uh-huh.
turned your head to sneeze, you
Mhm.
have one branch of hair, I'm gonna call it, that's sticking
Oh,
straight up
okay.
in the air. Now you'd have to turn all the way back to see it yeah, there she is. There she is. Like
Well,
when the horse raises their tail
uh-huh.
to use the bathroom. That's what your hair is looking like in the back. I don't
Well,
know how
it
you're
is
doing it. I don't know how you did it, but congratulations.
it's hair washing day, number 1. Whoever sat behind me today, you're welcome. I hope that there are pictures floating around the internet of the back of my hair. I can always count on you and my principal. Once I introduce my principal to the term Evie hole, because that's what you always call it, now that's the language that she uses too.
She
So
does. She does.
she'll say,
She
"You've
asked
got
me
an
the other
Evie
day
hole."
about your Evie hole, and
Yeah.
my grandmother's name was Evie. She never had the for hair. It was always a big hole, and Laura always has a big hole. Like if I don't see it, nobody else can see it. Well,
Yeah.
yes, we all see your Evie hole.
Yeah. So I didn't have you or her. We need to get my Ellie Blair on the Evie hole because she would tell me and she would,
Oh, she would. Yeah, she'd
yeah.
tell you,
Yeah.
but she didn't today because you
No.
went with
And
that
she didn't tell me
looking
about
like
my
you had a
mascara.
stroke.
And I'm just thinking about all the places that I went today and Publix, and no wonder everybody was so helpful to me
I
there in
know.
Publix. They were like, "Oh gosh."
Like, what
Yeah.
is that? What's happened to her?
Um, well, I just love our topic today and talking about voice, and to me it inspires me just hearing these last couple of weeks to go back in and really hear these kids' stories. And when we were listening about ghostwriting and learning about ghostwriting, one of the ghostwriters that we heard from said that she gets so excited every time she writes a story for somebody, whether it's a sports hero or whether it's a war hero or whatever. She just becomes immersed in their story. And as a ghostwriter, she has to because she has to tell it in their voice. And so it makes me think about our students and how we have to do that. We have to feel what they're going through. We have to have that empathy because we've got to tell their story with passion to move to make things happen sometimes.
Yeah,
So it just makes me ready to go back in and listen and help.
absolutely. Well, I've enjoyed it today. It was good to see you, even if you do look sickly. With
Yeah. Well, it was good to see you too.
and I guess it's your nap time.
It's past my nap
I'm
time.
sorry. Yeah, that
It's
shit.
not your fault. It's not your fault. All right. Well, anything we want to talk about?
All hearts and minds clear.
I did
Well, let's see,
mention
where are we going next? What do we have next?
San
So I'm excited about that.
Antonio, Tuscaloosa.
Yes, yes.
Got some
Kansas
things in the
City for those who are going to
yes,
be ask us. So a lot
yeah.
of fun things coming up. All right.
Um, and if you do want to join our course, Growing Your Program for School Counselors, It is going to be so much fun. It's a time where, I don't know, it just feels like we're spending it with our best friends. Don't you think? Like we
I
become
do.
friends with these
Yes.
people, and it's been so much fun just as we've traveled to see these people and get to hug their necks. And I don't know, you just feel connected to everybody when you take
Yeah.
this course. And so, anyway, we're going to be opening that up, and a lot of you have already joined the wait list. And um, part of the beauty of this program is keeping it at a number where we do feel connected. So if you don't make it in on round one, we'll do it again, probably in the fall, we've talked about. So go ahead and get on the wait list so that we kind of know who might be interested in. And then when the doors open, it's a race. And then we do have our books, Growing Your Program for School Counselors and Hygiene. So you can check those out too. Follow us on Instagram and you can like us on Facebook.